I think it's great how you're able to provide those opportunities for student athletes to explore that realm of media and being an athlete. And with the schools that you partnered with, watching those podcasts, they get really into it, and they're able to share an inside scoop of their experience as an athlete. And speaking of the NIL portion, in the past 2 years, college athletics has just completely been changed from NIL, becoming legal almost 2 years ago. How's that process been like, that experience, talking to college athletic programs and pitching to them, listen, we're going to really help your athletes through this process. So what's, been some of the fun parts of the NIL process, and where are some challenges?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. NIL, I believe, is a great thing at its core, at its surface. I mean, NIL, at what it's intended to be, is every athlete being able to monetize their name, image, and likeness, the hard work that they put in, which I'm all for. I love it. What NIL has turned into is really collectives and donors. Every school in the country now has a collective raising money and paying athletes salaries and monthly retainers and stipends to play at their school. And the difference between NFL athletes making money in marketing and the college players making money in marketing is that in college there's recruiting. So in the NFL you get drafted, right? And you just go to the school or the team that wants you. In college you have to pick where you go. So then naturally NIL gets used as inducements in recruiting of like, hey, we'll pay you this amount of money to come to our school. Which is fine if there's a level playing field and everyone is playing by the same rules. And right now it's not. And as we built this company, one of the difficult things has been really what athletes want from an NIL standpoint. You'll talk, the spectrum is so wide. We have one athlete who may want $500 to host a podcast, and then one asks for $500,000. And they're like very similar skill levels. It just depends on what school they're at. So that's been challenging. But I think at the end of the day, the NIL is a great thing for the sport. It's about time that players get to monetize their name, image, and likeness. I mean, I remember when I was playing, which, I mean, I know it wasn't that long ago. I feel old sitting in this room, but I mean, you weren't able to do anything. I remember that people would always get kind of busted if like I went out to dinner with an alumni, and that alum like bought dinner for me. And it was like the NCAA was like, oh, that can't happen. Or as coaches, we're only allowed to take you out to dinner like one time every 2 months because it was against NCAA rules. Nowadays, you have athletes making hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's multiple players on Penn State teams making six figures a year. So those days are obviously over. I think it's a great thing, but the NCAA or federal legislation, something will come in soon and make NIL, make their fair across the line with every school playing by the same set of rules.
I think it's so interesting how fast things can change too.
Crazy.
It's not that long ago that you were playing college football, and now the rules are completely drastically changing.
Yeah.
Even though NIL is only about 2 years old now, where do you hope to see the NIL space and even the NIL media space grow? Yeah,
I think from an NIL perspective, what will happen soon is revenue sharing from the TV deals. I do a segment with Front Office Sports every week. We just did a segment on the college football playoff next year is going to be, the TV deal is going to be worth $2.4 billion. The biggest TV deal of all time, 2 times the size of March Madness and college basketball's TV deal. But the players get none of that. They don't see any of it. So what's going to end up happening pretty soon is that TV revenue share will come in for the players from the TV deals. So they'll start getting a cut of that. And then what we see from a collective model with NIL, with donors raising money and paying athletes, will go away. It'll all go in-house to a school. The school will pay their players through revenue sharing. And then NIL, with what it's intended to be, which is marketing deals. It's Drew Aller doing a deal with the car dealership in town. It's Kendra Lambert Smith getting to do a deal with like the bar downtown and doing his own hamburger at it. Like that's what it's intended to be. Not these collectives raising money from donors and paying athletes. So that will all go inside the school, and the athletes will get money from the revenue sharing. That's what I think should happen. I think it will happen. There's a lot of push for that in college football. It's just a matter of time from a legislation standpoint. But I think the best part of NIL to me has been how it's allowed athletes to build their brand and do media that they weren't otherwise allowed to do. Like I said, when I played, you couldn't do media. It was, if I would have went to Bill O'Brien and told him I wanted to start a podcast, it would not have been good. I'm telling you, it would not have gone well. I might have been off the team. Like it was just not something that you did. But now with NIL, players want to build their brands, players want to do media, and players want to be part of telling their stories. And what it's been able to do is cut out traditional media in the whole thing. And now players can talk directly to fans after games when big things happen. We have a podcast at Mercury with 2 Oklahoma players, and the one guy just got hurt. So he decides, instead of his head coach going to his press conference and talking about how he got hurt, instead of him tweeting about it, he decided to break the news on his podcast that he controls, that he monetizes, that he sells merchandise through. And like that's the cool part of it, when players can do things like that.
Absolutely. Puts the ball in his court,
Exactly.
for him to be able to have the voice and say, listen, I'm hurt. This is what's going to happen this season. So, yeah, definitely allows them to have a little more of a voice and, behind who they actually are.